Okay, so we've started Unit 1, which is credit. So just to read this over again with you. So credit is a promise to repay an obligation. So I use my American Express to, I don't know, buy a washing machine.
Yeah, because all they ever takes it.
Sears gets their money from American Express. Sears is promised by American Express to get paid the money for the washing machine, and I've made a promise to American Express that I will pay them for whatever they in turn have already paid for. So it's a promise to an obligation. So who are the two parties involved? There are two. One is the lender. The lender provides value in the form of cash, merchandise, or some other item of value, and the borrower, that's us, the little people, we make a commitment to pay what we owe according to a pre-agreed schedule. How do they decide whether or not to give you credit? Well, they need to feel confident that you will repay, and these decisions are based on what is called the 3 C's of credit. So the first C is actually called credit. It's the borrower's willingness to pay. Capacity, the borrower's ability to repay the obligation. In other words, you got to have the cash, you got to have a job. And then the character of the borrower. So it's their stability. How long have they been where they're living? How long have they been at their job? Things like this. The longer the term at either of those, the better. This is the credit application. Again, they're going to be looking for, there's my mouse, your full name, first, last, maiden, if you are married. What was your date of birth? What's your social security number? And they want your driver's license number and what state it's from, along with if your permanent address, or if you're moving around a little bit, what's your mailing address? It's different from that. Home phone number, do you own your home? Are you renting it? Or do you live with family? How long have you been living at that residence? 3 months, 12 years and 3 months, what have you. They're looking for the name and address of your landlord or the company that holds your mortgage, and what do you pay each month in rent or for your mortgage payment. If you've lived somewhere else before, what was that full address and how long were you there? Who do you work for currently? What is the applicant's occupation? What do you do for a living? What's the work phone number? How much gross do you make in salary? And how long have you been at the job? If you've only been there for a month, that's going to speak differently than if you've been there for 5 years, 20 years. Since Mrs. Darrow is celebrating her 20-year anniversary here at Upper Adams. If you've had a different job before this one, if this is the second job, who did you work for before? And if less than if less than 5 years there, what's their contact information? Where do you do your banking? And what type of banking do you do at that bank? Is it checking, savings, checking and savings? There's a bunch of different ones, but these are kind of the basic ones. Have you ever filed for bankruptcy? What's bankruptcy? Bankruptcy is basically where you owe more than what you have in cash value and or can liquidate, can sell for cash. And it's a form of, I'll call it forgiveness. They wipe out all your debt, but you have zero credit for 7 to, I think it's 13 years, depending upon which bankruptcy you file for. So that's what bankruptcy is. So they need to know that, because that's going to totally affect your credit. Who currently do you have credit with? JCPenney's, Dunham's, I don't know, GMAC Mortgage Company. When was this credit account established? When did you get a different, I don't know, like a car payment? How much do you owe each month, and what is left in your balance? So if I originally owed, I don't know, I bought my washing machine for, I'll just say $1,000. It was plated in gold. And I've paid off $500. I still have $500 that I owe. It's my unpaid balance. They're looking for some references. What's their name? What's their phone number? And what's their relationship to you? Mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, neighbor, what have you. Anybody know what this paragraph is called? There's a term that we use for a bunch of legalese that's written in really tiny print. It's called the small print. I knew you knew that. It's called the small print. Always, always read the small print, because once you sign your name down here, this becomes a legal and binding contract. And if you've lied on it, or if you do not abide by whatever contract, they can take you to court. So always read every word on every document that you sign your name to. So this is what a sample credit report might look like. So you've applied for credit, and now they want to run a credit report on you to find out overall what's your standing. So it will have your name, your Social Security, when you were born, where you live. If you lived somewhere else before, what was it? What do you do for a living? If there's any information out on the public records, if you've broken the law, if you've, I don't know, if you filed for bankruptcy, it should come up here. Thanks. If any collection agency is after you to pay a bill, you've I don't know, you've owed American Express money for a year and a half, that will show up here. Along with the information on your current credit company. So John Smith has an account, a charge account or credit account with Target, with Mobile, with Visa, and USA Bank. It will list John's account numbers, what type of account, and in what states. So he's got a revolving account. His mobile card was lost or stolen. Visa is a revolving, and USA Bank is an investment account. The date that they were opened, the date of the last activity, balances, how much is still owed, how much is past due, like he missed last month's payment, how much is past due, how many days delinquent on that payment is John, and the date that whatever was reported, so the last payment, whatever that date was recorded. Any other information that's pertinent to this will be listed here. So like he's got a checking account opened on this date, was reported closed on this date due to insufficient funds. He didn't have enough money. He was bouncing checks. And then a savings account was opened on this date. And then it will list everybody who has requested a credit report on John. It's good to run a credit report on yourself, maximum once a year. It's free at that point. After that point, not only will they start charging you, but it will become a ding against your credit. So if you had a 700 credit score and you have 2 or 3 checks on your credit, you could go down to 699, 698, 697 just because you're checking your credit report. So whether it's you checking, whether it's a mortgage company checking, whether it's a credit card company checking, every entity that checks your credit can act as a ding against your credit and lower your credit. Yep.
What about creditkarma.com? That's you checking on yourself.
Right.
So
You're allowed one free in a year. After that, it can. Not that it guarantees. I mean, it's not a guarantee that it will, but they warn you that it could become.
Okay.
Could go against your credit.
Detrimental.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Slide 4. So what are your rights? U.S. Public Joe here. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act is designed to protect consumers, you guys, by making sure that credit reporting agencies use reasonable and confidential procedures and provide businesses with correct and complete information. Lenders, the banks, the credit card companies, must notify you of a credit denial. They must identify the credit reporting agency that issued the report if the credit denied is based on that credit report. There are 3 credit companies that you can use, so that's why they say they've got to identify which company. And the lenders must fully disclose all credit terms in the credit transaction. The credit reporting agencies must, by law, provide you, the consumer, with a free copy of your report if credit is denied because of their report. The credit reporting agency must investigate inaccuracies, usually within 30 days. So you see there's an inaccuracy, you report it to them, they've got basically a month to investigate. They must delete any negative information after 7 years or 10 years for bankruptcy. They must list the name of anyone who requests your credit report, and upon request, they must provide you with a copy of your credit report. So those are your rights, and those are your rights for you and your rights for the credit report agencies towards you. So, should you check your credit history? People should check their credit history once a year to make sure that it's accurate. Don't just go, okay, there's my credit score, not look at the rest of it. Make sure it's accurate. How do you check? Well, you contact one of the 3 credit reporting agencies for a copy. They usually charge a fee, but oftentimes the first one is for free. What do you do if there's a mistake on your credit report? If you find an inaccuracy, report it to the agency. They're required again to investigate the claim within 30 days typically. This is a finance agreement. It's very similar to what you might be asked to sign when closing a loan. So again, it's going to name who the lender, who the borrower is, when, all the information about your monthly payment. So on what date, how much, what the interest rate will be, and things like that. Your monthly payment is determined, again, by the amount of the loan. I can't read this. All this other stuff. They got finance charges in here, and then what's your total percentage rate. They're looking for some security information. What happens if you're late with a payment? What happens if you're in default? You never pay. What happens? Prepayment. It used to be when people would go for mortgages, they wanted to buy a house, borrow $100,000 for 20 years, and by 10 years in, they have the money. They can pay off the loan, and the banks would still charge them all the interest that they still owed for the remaining years of the loan, even though they just paid it off. So you want to always check that there is no prepayment penalty. Banks are starting to do away with these, but always check to see, am I going to get in trouble financially if I pay this loan off early? The idea is you want to pay it off as soon as you can. If you can pay it off early, great. Get it off of your credit, and it helps to build your credit, and you don't have to keep paying this stuff. But just make sure that you're not going to be penalized somehow. And then again, this is the small print, legalese. You must sign it, the lender must sign it, and if there's a co-signer, they must sign it as well. So in summary, use credit only when necessary and for things whose usefulness and desirability outlast the payment. Nothing like paying for something that's already broken and you can't use anymore. I had bought a car, first car out of college. It was so exciting. I had like 3 payments left on it, and I got in an accident. It was totaled. Off to the junkyard it went, and I still had to make those 3 payments. Those were the hardest payments to make. So make sure that you're not still paying for something after it breaks down or is no longer useful. Calculate whether the payments can be handled within your monthly cash flow prior to entering into the transaction. If you're only making $30,000 a year, you can't or should not be buying a $200,000 house that you have to pay off in 4 years. It's not financially possible. So just make sure that you can handle the payments. Make sure you understand all of the charges, the fees, and the interest rates. Read thoroughly through the agreement. Make sure you understand it prior to signing it. And make your payments as agreed, and if a problem arises, contact the lender to try to find some alternatives. I can't make these payments. Can you work with me? I can make this, if you owe $200, I can pay $150. I just can't make that last $50. Sometimes they'll work with you to figure out, because they would rather get their money than have you just totally default and walk away. And then they're out all their money. So they oftentimes are willing to work with you. All right, that's the end of the PowerPoint. Right now we're going to go out to Google Classroom. So if you would go to Google Classroom. There is an assignment number 4, print management. I need you to read it. There are just a couple of you that have not yet read it. Make sure you read it right now and then mark it as done. I'll give you a minute to do that. 8 more to go. 6 more to go. You guys are fast breathers. I love it. Just a couple more seconds. 3 more to go. I know I've got 2 people up, but that means there's still 1 person in here who hasn't read it. I'm going to come chasing after you. Okay, if you're in Classroom already, you may have to refresh your screen in order to see the Unit 1 credit assignment. I'm going to open up the top activity, so the PDF. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to read through these 3 paragraphs, look this over, read these 9 points carefully. The second page is called Know Your Credit Part 2. You're going to read this, look over the chart, read this stuff, and you've got 4 questions to answer. That's for Part 2. Next page is called What's Your Money IQ? It's like a little quiz. And there are 9 questions that you're going to need to answer. And then the next quiz, so this is What's Your Money IQ? Just questions and answers. And the last one is called Your Credit-Wise Quiz. Multiple choice. There are 12 questions there. In Classroom, next one, I have for you this template. We're going to talk about naming conventions in a second. But you'll see it says, Part 1, just read. Part 2, there were those 4 questions. What's your money IQ? There were the 9 questions, and the credit-wise quiz, there are 12 questions. When you go to answer this, you're going to click to the right of the X, hit the delete space 1 time so that you have no red X anymore, and your answer types up as red. Just makes life really easy. All right, if you would please open this document, the Google Doc. I don't know how this is opening for you. If it says that you have to make a copy, the little blue button is here. You're going to need to make a copy. So click on Make Copy or whatever that button says. Yep, it's File Make Copy. You're going to take out the words copy of from the left side of the document title that it's trying to get you to call it. And you're going to replace template-15 with your last name. So it should just say U1-credit-know your credit-worksheet, and in my case it would just say Smith. Take out the word template 15. Yep, take out template 15. Put your last name in place of what I have highlighted. Okay, so once you have that named correctly, you can start working on this. While you guys work on this, I'm going to make a Dropbox. When you're done, you're going to put it in the Dropbox, not back in the assignment where you found it. Okay? If you have any questions, come see me. Once you have it, once you have your copy, you can close out of mine. If you don't finish today, that's okay. The beginning of class tomorrow, you'll have time to finish it up along with the module, finishing that up. Hang on one second. Let me just. Otherwise, I'm going to forget to make the Dropbox. Okay, so if you look up real quick, you'll see that it says Unit 1 Credit Activities 1, 2, and 3, Dropbox. That's where you're going to put the Google Doc. I don't need the PDF put in here, just the Google Doc.